I think by now everybody here knows that I am a pretty big fan of Chrome OS and Chromebooks. I've reviewed several Chromebooks here on this channel. I love how light they are. I love how fast they boot, how good the battery life is, how fast they are. And Google has done a lot of work bringing new features to Chromebooks. But there are a few things that for me kind of continue to hold these devices back. But about 7 months ago, we got word that Google was planning something really, really big for Chromebooks, for Chrome OS in general, that I think could address pretty much all of these issues. Going back to this reporting from Michelle Ramon over here on Android Authority, Google is turning Chrome OS into Android to compete with the iPad. And like I said, this I think would address most of my issues. Call me crazy, but on my Chromebook, on Chrome OS, a lot of the time, I didn't really want to use the Chrome browser. Maybe I wanted to use Firefox, or maybe I wanted to use Brave or something like that. And while technically you can do that, it was a much worse experience because you're running an Android app. And yes, Chromebooks can run Android apps quite well these days. It still does feel like something that's kind of grafted onto the operating system. The way that those third-party browsers look and even sometimes perform is just sort of a step below where the Chrome browser is, and it makes total sense. This operating system was initially based completely around that Chrome browser, so of course that is the case. Now look, merging Chrome OS with Android is not just going to address those sorts of things. It's going to address a whole bunch of things. It is a seismic shift in Google's strategy for Chrome OS and Chromebooks. In that article, the reasoning that was given was that Android is already a very scalable platform, right? It can run on your phone, it can run on your tablet, maybe that's still one device, but you know what I mean. It can run on your smartwatch, it's going to be running on XR and VR headsets and glasses very, very soon, but it didn't really run on laptops. For that, Google had something separate. So they had Android for everything, except for laptops where they had Chrome OS. And Chrome OS was now running Android apps. So it really did not make a ton of sense to have this separate operating system that runs Android apps but isn't Android, and everything else does run Android. So they wanted to have one OS that truly scaled from phone to tablet to XR, VR, watch, laptop, one operating system to do everything. But to do this, you do have to make some pretty big changes to Android. You need a true desktop user interface. And guys, you know this already as well as I do. We now basically have that, or we have the early scaffolding, maybe you could say, of exactly that. As part of the Android 16 quarterly platform #1 beta, we now have a desktop mode running just like Samsung DeX on these Pixel devices. I'll show you very quickly what this actually looks like. And this is running on my Pixel 9 Pro Fold right now. You can see my little cursor there. I've got an app drawer that will fire up just like that. And I can, of course, just open up any application that I want. We'll just do the Play Store because that's simple. And it opens up in a floating window that I can move around. I can maximize it. I can shrink it back down. I can actually minimize it into my taskbar, which you can see right down here. I can even open up a second app. We'll just use Firefox. And if I drag it over to one side, it'll even open up like that and kind of snap just like Windows over to that side. I can drag the Play Store over and it's going to do the same thing. This does have some rough edges, right? Like it's not a completed desktop UI just yet. There are some problems. Like right now, I don't think that there is still a way to actually like see my notifications. I can see them up there, but I can't do anything about that. So there's plenty of things left to fix. But as you can see, it's pretty darn close to usable already, and that is the desktop interface that Google needs to make this work. It's really not going to take a whole lot, large leap of imagination to imagine a laptop running Android, running that desktop user interface. And then those Android apps are native. They're not something that's kind of grafted onto Chrome OS. It is Android. So why am I bringing this up? Why are we talking about this again? Well, guys, it's because this is no longer just some reporting, some rumors, and some speculation. This has been all but confirmed in an article on Tech Radar. I guess they were actually having like a conversation, a little bit of an interview. Android ecosystem president at Google, Samir Samant, asked a Tech Radar reporter why they were using a MacBook and an iPhone. And then they said this, quote, I asked because we're going to be combining Chrome OS and Android into a single platform, and I am very interested in how people are using their laptops these days and what they are getting done. He just said it. This isn't some press release announcement. He's just talking to someone at Tech Radar and just casually dropped, oh, by the way, we're combining Chrome OS and Android into a single platform. This is really big news and a really weird way to get it. Now, while I obviously really love the idea of this project, I love the idea of, a single ecosystem, so to speak. You've got a phone, a laptop, a tablet, and they all run the exact same suite of applications. Not, the same app, but different versions for different OSs. Literally the same exact application. And the developers, I feel like that might be good for them too, because they're not having to make multiple versions of the app. They just make the one version and it can work on all of these different devices. It just has to be able to scale. But with Android 16, Google is kind of making that sort of thing mandatory. All apps are going to have to be scalable. And I think that there's obvious reasons why they are doing that. And this is but one of them. This is a very ambitious project. And there are lots of potential questions ahead. I think the biggest question is, what do they do with the Chrome OS branding, the Chrome OS name? There's a lot of name cachet there, right? Everybody knows Chromebook and Chrome OS. Now, are they positive connotations or negative connotations? Have too many people now sort of grown up using cheap Chromebooks in school, and maybe they're going to think if it's a Chromebook, it's just this sort of cheap device, even though there are very premium, very, very fast, very, very nice Chromebooks? Would it make sense to abandon that name and try something else, Android Book or something? I don't know. There's probably many different ways they could go about this. There are tons of questions that need to be answered with how these devices are going to be branded. Are we going to get some sort of premium Pixel book again? I really genuinely hope that we do. That could be very, very cool. I'd love to hear, we talked about this in the past, but I'd love to hear from you guys again now that this seems much more concrete and you can visualize what this is going to look like. What would you call it? Would you get rid of Chromebook? Would you call it something new? I think that's a really interesting conversation. But guys, as always, I want to hear from you in the comments down below. What do you think about this? Would you be interested in buying a laptop that ran Android now that you've seen what that user interface more or less is going to look like? I think it's also important to understand that just like with Android in general, it's possible that OEMs will make these laptops and maybe they will change this interface a little bit. Samsung DeX is now apparently running with this new desktop mode as its underpinning, and Samsung is modifying it. So maybe we'll see a Samsung laptop that runs DeX by default. Would you be interested in something like that? Let me know in those comments down below. Subscribe for more content just like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.